The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Want the real story behind the sound bites and headlines? Let's find the facts. Remember, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. You are not paranoid or confused. You just need to know.
Welcome in, everyone. It is time for Need to Know, and Kip Kiefer is here as per usual. We record this program on TKR Monday mornings, and it just so happens to be Monday morning. Hope you had a great weekend. Lots of things going on, of course, immersed in the college football season myself now. Lots of storylines developing here locally. When you've got the Alabama Crimson Tide now seemingly back on track with 2 wins. But before everybody gets excited, starts talking about national champions, consider my mantra so far this season has been, it's not how you play, it's who you play. They beat Louisiana Monroe. Okay, that was a complete joke. And they won Saturday against Wisconsin, who's a big name opponent from a big name conference, but not a very good team, particularly offensively, just downright feeble. So Alabama now has a week off, and in 2 weeks, they go to Athens, Georgia, and play Georgia. It's going to be very interesting to see in that extreme arena where Georgia has not lost now in, I don't know what the streak's up to, 33, 34 games in a row, have not lost at home since 2018. A big challenge for the Alabama Crimson Tide, but you got to give Tide Nation credit. They are supremely confident always that the Crimson and White will prevail. Down on the Plains, Auburn kept their winning ways going. They've gone to 3-0 now, but just like looking at opponents there, Auburn has beaten in the last 2 weeks after a good road win at Baylor. They come home and play a couple of, well, let's just call them less than prime time opponents. Now they go on the road. And one of the best stories of the week is this coming Saturday, because the Auburn Tigers, led by the quarterback, Jackson Arnold, will be going to Norman, Oklahoma, where Arnold just left. He was the quarterback, much ballyhooed, celebrated 5-star quarterback at Oklahoma last season, and it did not go well. So Arnold coming back to Oklahoma to take on the Sooners, who are off to a great start, is going to be a very interesting game indeed. So that's a little bit of a football appetizer. We had terrible events in this country a week ago, and I am absolutely compelled to talk to you about it. Again, on this show, if you're a longtime listener, I don't come on here and try to tell you what to think or how to think. I ask you to think for yourself, and that's going to be a big theme of what we're going to talk about over the next 20 or 25 minutes here, because what's taken place in Utah last Wednesday with the murder of Charlie Kirk, who I'm sure most folks are familiar with the name. Charlie Kirk was a 31-year-old man, awfully young in life, had recently married in just the last 4 or 5 years, had 2 tiny children, 3 and 1. His lovely wife, he leaves behind as well. But he also leaves behind millions of young people that he has directly influenced. And let's just talk a little bit about the implications of that and where we are as a country when one of the most promising voices of a generation that has just energized and made this conservative movement of young people kind of blow up. Let me give you some of the facts on this so you can form your thoughts and reach your own conclusions. This young man grew up in suburban Chicago. He was the son of conservative parents. he jokingly said that almost the entire time of his youth, that sort of the Pied Piper for the modern day conservative movement in this country, Rush Limbaugh, was on in his house all the time in terms of the broadcast choices by his parents and his family. So he was raised with a great appreciation of the things that emanated to him as most important. And coming out of high school as an honor student, Charlie Kirk had a decision to make on which college to attend until he just had an epiphany at 18 years old. And not too many people do that. At 18, Charlie Kirk kind of saw clear what he felt like his mission was. And he saw a landscape of people in his age group, young adults, getting ready to go into college or start their lives and think about starting families and establishing households and charting their course into adulthood, which is, I think, everybody listening. Of course, it all depends on your age, but pretty daunting time in your life where you've got major decisions and you set courses just like a journey of any other kind. And of course, those courses get altered as the journey continues, but it's really a critical time. And you have to keep in mind, in Charlie Kirk's generation, born in 1993, we started to have that was coming out of the Reagan years, the George W. Bush presidency, 9/11 happened, of course, when Charlie Kirk was a very small child. Well, not small, he was already up to about 93 to 2001, 8 years old when that took place. But that was quite an event. And there's been a little bit after 9/11 and the dastardly attacks that took place on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and of course the Americans trying to take back the plane that crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. We just saw the commemoration last week of the 24th anniversary of 9/11, and it's kind of symmetrical that Charlie Kirk's assassination, while doing what he has done thousands of times, appearing on a college campus and having a frank discussion with young people of college age and talking to them about the things that are important to him, his values, his opinions, and his analysis from a historical standpoint of everything going on in this world. And that might not sound unique to many of you, but to backtrack to Charlie Kirk's decision at 18 years old, this is what he saw as his mission. He saw his peers, people of his age, being completely influenced because they were basically wandering aimlessly in this forest of misinformation and lies, and more importantly, indoctrination. This generation of Americans, starting about the time that he was born, maybe a little bit earlier than that, basically entered into a time where education was no longer offered in their younger years. The whole profession overall, if you look at the unions that represent teachers, their objective now, sadly, tragically, and potentially absolutely lethally, is to espouse political views and form opinions on social issues and it's not just me saying that. If you look at test scores for 12-year-old students ready to start their high school careers, basically getting into the adolescent period, teenage years, the scores of those children since the 1980s are a third of what they used to be. Math, science, reading, the basics that used to rank the average student in the 70 to 80 percentile as far as proficiency, to be able to read, to be able to speak legibly, to be able to do basic math, understand basic principles of science, biology, including how the human body works. I mean, all of these things that used to be the vast large percentile of young people were ready to move on to the next level of their education, but that has been de-emphasized because the American education system has become a career of indoctrination, not education. And it all started in 1978 during the Jimmy Carter administration, where Carter and his administration formed a federal Department of Education. Now, education has always been, in the 200 prior years in this country, basically the responsibility of state and local jurisdictions. The federal government really had no role whatsoever, none, in forming a federal agency that would oversee education and be largely in charge of a lot of the funding, a lot of the certifications, a lot of the standards. And as we have seen, this kind of leftist movement in this country, which has crept into so many areas of government, definitely infected the Department of Indoctrination, because that department was formed to do that very thing, was to reprogram America's youth into the message that America was not the greatest country on earth, as I was taught and I was reinforced with, talking about all the miraculous things this country's accomplished prior to my lifetime. The emphasis completely shifted to what an evil and dastardly and terrible country this is, that was founded on the backs of slaves, that was slaughtered the indigenous people in the country. And while all that is documented fact in terms of the history of the country, the founding of this nation, like every major nation, civilization in the history of the world, there were, of course, a lot of blemishes on that. But emphasizing that and teaching young people that, not the greatness of America, who twice liberated the continent of Europe from the most inconceivable evil possible, and has been a tremendous force around the world to wield our influence and keep a lot of the worst imaginable situations from occurring, not to mention all of the brilliance and innovation that we have contributed to the world with the most, emphasized system possible to mankind, to emphasize individual liberty and achievement. That is the mother of invention. That is what sparks innovation and progress. So the bottom line is, this has been a country that, when I think I've described to you on this podcast many times, how many times as a child in elementary school, I would think to myself, I am so lucky to be an American. I am so lucky to have every opportunity at my fingertips. And there are people that say, well, that's not true. The American dream is not available to everybody. Well, a big reason the American dream is not available to everybody right now is because they changed the system. It used to be your initiative and your achievement and your dedication could take you as far as you wanted to go. Now they've altered the rules to try to make it equitable for everyone. And while it is equitable for everyone, because the ceiling of what you can individually achieve, I don't care what your ethnicity is, what your religion is, what your background is. America gives everybody a spot at the starting line, and they can go out and carve out what they can do in their particular pursuits. It's the best system in the world. It has been failed over and over and over again, having this everybody ties for first place, everybody gets a trophy. We have to have DEI, diversity, equality, inclusion. Equity, I'm sorry, not equality, it's a different word. Equality is something to strive for because you want everybody to have the opportunity. Equity is not equality. Equity is dragging people at the top in terms of intellect and effort and determination and and will to succeed, it's dragging them into some kind of middle or bottom tier to boost other people that are not inclined with the same values and the same drive and the same abilities. And again, it's a system that's been tried for centuries in so many different places. It doesn't work. It does not work to take away the incentive of people that are achievers, and it takes away the incentive of those who want to make their lives better and dedicate themselves to doing that. It's a failed system. So back to Charlie Kirk, he recognized at 18 these people are not hearing the voices that were instilled in him by his parents about the world is his oyster. It's at his fingertips. He can do anything that he possibly imagines to achieve. And he felt like the fact that that wasn't being communicated to his peers was just a tragedy, that many of them had this negative opinion of their own country. And he said, you know what? I'm not going to college. I'm starting today of going out and talking to as many people as I can. And this young man with very humble means, came from a middle class family. He wasn't funded. He wasn't some rich industrialist like the current socialist candidate for mayor of New York. Mamdani is comes from privilege. He's a silver spoon kid, and he's espousing socialism. He came from money for his mission. Charlie Kirk started his on his own. But Charlie Kirk made an immediate impact. He started with Turning Point USA because he wanted to turn it around. He wanted to get back to American principles. And as his assassination takes place last Wednesday, as I mentioned, doing what he's done for the last 13 years, building an organization that now has 3,200 chapters at American universities and high schools. Young people are energized like never before. The 2024 election, I don't know who our president would be right now without Charlie Kirk, because Charlie Kirk went out and sold the agenda, sold the proper agenda that America's the greatest country on earth and you've got every opportunity to be a part of it. It was a voice that this generation had not heard, and they responded to it because in their DNA, in their makeup, they are the descendants of people that fought and died for this country, of people that risked everything to come from all corners of the globe and build this country into what it is. And they came and did it the legal way. They didn't come and intrude and demand anything. Many of these families started with nothing and still were the first to volunteer to defend their country from enemies, particularly in World War II, where America was directly attacked and directly under threat with the Axis powers, Japan, Germany, Italy at the time. Bottom line is they come from the greatest generations, but they weren't hearing those stories anymore. They were being coerced into believing that they had no chance to make a difference, that their voice didn't matter, that their heritage was something to be ashamed of, not to be celebrated. Charlie Kirk changed the narrative. He went to campuses all over the country, high school, college, wherever they would see him. And of course, with the leftist vitriol that's on so many campuses, he was in tremendously adverse situations so many times. Protesters, people throwing things, people trying to shout him down, people threatening him. And Charlie Kirk stood above it. He always talked about embracing the most important right we have, our First Amendment right of free speech. And he invited people that had dissenting views onto stage and said, okay, convince me. I think this last tour that was supposed to last several months, it actually started at Utah Valley University last Wednesday. Prove me wrong was the theme of the whole deal. And now in his death, there are actually people on this leftist radical movement celebrating the fact that he has been killed. And if that doesn't stagger you, that somebody who is out there saying, I believe in this, I believe in that, We should believe in this and that. That is the basic premise of what this country is. You, me, everybody that's listening to this show, everybody who is walking around in our country has the right to declare what they believe and what they are devoted to. And for this other side, because this guy was such an effective threat, because this guy almost single handedly changed the entire dynamic of youth in this country, where in this last election, there was a 40-point swing from just 4 years before. Uh, 40 points of the youth vote going to Trump. And this was youth vote of not just suburban white kids. This was Hispanic Americans. This was African Americans. This was people of all different genres and persuasions. The young vote is what delivered Donald Trump. There's been so many stories emanating Donald Trump himself saying to the fact that his young son Barron, who is a very technologically and brilliant young man, I think he's 18 now, just starting college, but he asked in his high school years, Dad, do you know Charlie Kirk? I'd really like to meet him. Trump said, now here's a kid, and Trump was aware of Charlie Kirk at the time. This is during the period where he wasn't president, in between 2020 and today. But he said that told him everything he needed to know. When his 15 or 16-year-old son, Donald Trump knew every world leader, every major American political figure, probably every luminary personality in the country. But the guy Barron Trump wanted to meet was Charlie Kirk. Meanwhile, Trump's sons, Don and Eric, both had established relations because Charlie Kirk was everywhere. He was ever present. He was all over the country. He was getting just enough support to build his organization, which now, as I mentioned, has millions of members in Turning Point USA and has been responsible for establishing 3,200 chapters. And since his death last Wednesday, they have had some kind of ridiculous amount of inquiries, double that of the current number, or tripling it actually, supposedly up to 30,000 contacts to the Turning Point office to find out how people can get involved, because this is a message that the youth of America were starving for. This is what they wanted to know. What's available for me? What can I do to make a difference? And they've responded in one of the biggest movements that a lot of people aren't even aware of. And this is an important point to this, that the mainstream media has pretty much tried to ignore this movement. And they've tried to actually be in denial that it even exists because it scares the bejesus out of them. This youth movement, this million young person march that Charlie Kirk has been the originator and the leader of. And yes, his voice was silenced last week, but this movement and the regular media has covered it like this is they called him a Nazi and a fascist. This is a young man in his 20s. The last couple of years leading up to his death last Wednesday at 31 years old, which is inconsolable for me to think of such a young man who had accomplished so much, whether you agree with his position or not. He's done extraordinary things. You don't cut somebody's life short unless you're just scared to death of him. And that's what basically happened here, because this guy was making a huge difference and he was just getting started. So the important fact to note here is this whole vitriol of talking about Charlie Kirk being a Nazi and a fascist, and this is how Hitler got started, and all this nonsense, because Charlie Kirk's message was based on three major principles. Number one, belief in the founding principles and the greatness of this country. Number two, the fact that God above, Jesus Christ, the Bible, the teachings of religious providence, and the lessons of a solid religious foundation is the basis for everything available to Americans, and it is the founding principle that's in charge, that's really dominant in the founding of this country. This country was founded on the basis of religious freedom. That's why people left Europe. You had these monarchies that were just had a grip on everything and dictated policy, where you can live, what you could do, what you could aspire to be, and what religion to practice. People said enough of that. They came to America to establish liberty, freedom, individual rights, and the biggest rights were free speech and religion. Charlie Kirk always hit on those themes of the Judeo-Christian principles and biblical province that guides this country and has always been intended to be the guiding light. It has been de-emphasized by this leftist movement, just like it has in so many other countries that have shifted in this direction, and it needs to stop, because it not only changes the system of this country, it changes everything if this is allowed to advance. Charlie Kirk fought to have that not happen. And the third thing that probably is what got him killed last Wednesday was the absolute, just limitless support of the idea of the traditional family, father, mother, children, the parents having a tremendous influence on their kids and being completely in charge of plotting their destiny through childhood to position them for the greatest that they can be when they reach adulthood. And with all that said, what we wound up with was a situation where this underground kind of, I guess the best way to say vacuum, that so many of these people that have perverse ideas about this country and what is it should be, which is completely departing from religion and family and belief in the principles that this government, that this country was founded on. These people took the words of Charlie on those three plots and turned it around to say this guy is spewing hate, because they are advocating everything from there's multiple genders, children should be mutilated and allowed to transition to the opposite sex if that's what they desire. Is a 6 or 7 year old that is so, it's just, I used the word a minute ago, it's so perverse, it's disgusting. And of course, big business is behind that, because once someone enters into that kind of decision and is allowed to and be coached up, let's face it, a 7-year-old's not going to have the capacity or the mind ability to make that decision. So somebody's pushing these kids in that direction, and it's just a heinous offense. So, but they turned it all around because Charlie Kirk stood up and said, I'm for country, I'm for God, and I'm for family. Well, he's spewing hate. That became kind of the underground thing. He didn't get up and attack people. He didn't say you're wrong, you don't deserve to live, you don't deserve to have the same freedoms. I mean, he supported, that's why he gave people the chance to present their views and had good conversations. They're called debates now, but they were more solid conversations. Go back, there's hundreds of them on YouTube at every campus imaginable, some of them openly hostile to him because he was presenting ideas that they had been indoctrinated over the years that didn't fit. But for every one or two people that he didn't reach and were steadfast in their opinions, Charlie Kirk changed multitudes of young people and gave them the refreshing view to be proud of their country and embrace their opportunities and to get back into God. This weekend, for the first time, churches around the country reported massive attendance increases. The Charlie Kirk message is resonating. There's one person in a generation, a lot of times, maybe in 100 years, other times, that comes along and energizes an entire group and changes the world. That's what Charlie Kirk was doing, and that's what Charlie Kirk was likely to do had he been allowed to continue to live. This is a guy that probably in the next decade would have been a serious candidate to become the leader of this country because he is selling the right message. This is a great country. Has it made mistakes? Has it had stumbles? Absolutely. But now it's such a fantastic time in history that we can go ahead and make America everything that it was intended to stand for by the brilliant founders of this country 250 years ago. But his voice was cut short. I hope everybody got a chance to see it. And if you didn't, go to YouTube. His widow, Erica Kirk, did a speech for the ages sitting in his chair in his podcast studio on Friday night, delivered the most eloquent, beautiful, powerful message maybe delivered in the last since Martin Luther King March on Washington 1963. It was absolutely phenomenal. It was energizing. It was heartwarming. It was fabulous. And she said, those of you celebrating my husband's death, you have no idea what you've done. You have unleashed a giant. You are going to see a response for what he believed in that you're not going to believe. You have unleashed the beast, and just get ready for it because this movement is not going to die with Charlie's departure. I won't have it, and all the people that believed in him won't have it, and it's going to swell and become the most dominant force that this country has ever seen. And let me tell you, I believe her. She wasn't reading a script. It wasn't a teleprompter. She said the cries of this widow are going to resonate around the world as a battle cry, that it's time for us to fight for Charlie Kirk's vision and what he built. All of the greatest leaders in our country, before the death of Rush Limbaugh in 2018, he met Charlie Kirk, who at that time, 7 years ago, was only a 23-year-old kid, but he was already making huge progress. And Rush Limbaugh, in a great clip that's available also on YouTube, talks about, here's a young man, if you haven't heard his name, you're going to be hearing it. Charlie Kirk is doing unbelievable things to energize and revolutionize the youth of America. But at the same time, the perceived threat of what he was doing in terms of making young people conscious of what their country was about, that was, in their view, in their bubbled environment, the spewing of hate. This jackass, Tyler Robinson, who comes from a conservative family, but had become in college with his roommate, a male, who was transitioning to being a female. He became radicalized because in his perception that this guy was being mistreated, people in this position were being mistreated, people espousing family values and you know, the non-participation of males identifying as female, playing in women's sports, all of the things that are perfectly make common sense, that there only are male and females. There's not 50 genders or 500, however we're up to now. This guy got into this pattern. He was a brilliant kid, had all kinds of engineering skills. He dropped out of college after 1 year, and his mission had become the absolute opposite. Coming from a similar background, he went the other way. He became a underground kind of convert to all of these hate-spewing different Discord was the name of the big one that he was a member of. There's all kinds of writings that the government now possesses of him espousing all of these beliefs and always saying that Charlie Kirk was spewing hate and was, brainwashing people in his generation. And he decided in his community of people that were urging him on, basically, he decided he was going to do something about it last Wednesday. He was a hunter. He'd grown up around guns with his father and his family living in St. George's, Utah. He drove the 4 or 5 hours to the campus last week of Utah Valley University, and from 200 yards away, fired a shot that struck Charlie Kirk in the neck and pretty much killed him instantly. And it did not end the movement. It is just going to energize and increase that movement. And the thing is, and this goes back, we always think we live in such unique times. When John Wilkes Booth assassinated Abraham Lincoln in Ford's Theater in 1865, just 5 days after Appomattox, where General Lee surrendered to General Grant, Booth thought he was striking a blow for everyone. He lived in this circle of people that only believed and talked about what they wanted to see, and it's the same thing now. It's history repeating itself, and it always does. That's why history is so critical. Many major political assassinations have come under the same circumstances, that the gunman thinks they're doing something that is going to be celebrated. And it turns out it's dastardly. I've used that word too many times today. It's not usually in my vernacular. But the bottom line is it backfires because people are just completely negatively astonished by the cowardly act of killing someone for their views. And that's what happens here. He thought he was going to be celebrated by this community that he covets so much. Now he is being completely, cast as what he is, just a gutless, misguided, mentally ill, guy that probably is going to get the death penalty. So I hope it was worth it, because he's energized a movement and probably ended his life, which started off with great promise, with a great background and in the American story. So that's what you needed to know. Charlie Kirk, one of the great voices of the current younger generation. And so far, the response, his funeral, his memorial service will be next Sunday. It will be held at the State Farm Stadium. I was in the stadium 2 years ago for the Final Four. It seats almost 70,000 people, and they have reported that they are going to need every single seat. When's the last time you remember somebody's passing getting that kind of attention? This was a 31-year-old guy that people had heard his name, but a lot of people probably didn't know exactly what Charlie Kirk was doing. What he was doing was changing America by once again emphasizing country, God, family, and that he was killed because he was a spewer of hate. He was standing up for the greatest right you and I have, the right of the First Amendment to express our views freely and without fear of repercussion, and he died for it. He died for his country. He died for his generation, and everybody needs to rally to the cause to make America great. I don't use the again because, yes, we've been great many times temporarily, but there are things that we could do to make America great as it can be for the first time. And that is to give everybody a chance to access the American dream and to take that dream as far as they can possibly take it. It's the best system in the world. God bless America, the founders, the people that put their lives on the line to come to this country. We have a birth of freedom here, like Abraham Lincoln said, a new birth of freedom in the Gettysburg Address. He also died for his country at the hands of somebody who thought he was an evil tyrant. It's just so sad that people make these decisions based on their own just sickening mania and misinterpretation of what things really mean and what really matters. I'm Kip Kiefer. That's Need to Know. God bless you, Charlie Kirk. He podcasted all the time. Today, later, the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, will be sitting in his seat, and he is going to do the Charlie Kirk Show on this Monday, just like we do Need to Know every Monday. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the Vice President, another young, inspiring leader, is going to have to say. God bless you all. God bless the United States of America. This is Kip Kiefer. Have a fantastic and blessed week, everybody, and rest in peace, the great Charlie Kirk.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.